This is the Youth Soccer Revolution Podcast, episode number 16, with Mike Jacobs. Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining us in the Youth Soccer Revolution Podcast. My name is Ernesto Diaz. I'm your host. Again, I want to start out the podcast by thanking the SC Mag for a iTunes review. SC Mag says, the U13 through U8 coach, great resources for coaches, players, and parents. Thank you again for the iTunes review, SC Mag. I also want to thank a listener who reached out and recommended a person of interest to interview in our podcast. So thank you very much. Anything you guys want to recommend, any person that you think would bring great insight into what we're doing here with the podcast, which is player development, would be greatly appreciated. With the podcast, we're building a very strong community of coaches, parents, and club administrators who are interested in the development of players throughout the world. So thank you again for reaching out, for all of you that send messages and send emails, for helping out with the podcast. Today, we are very honored to have Mike Jacobs on. Mike Jacobs is the current president for the NSCAA and also the USL Pro Vice President of Developmental Properties. Mike has given so much of his time to soccer development in the U.S., he's a true pioneer and continues to blaze trails and improve the development of players and the system. I was really glad that I was able to get him on the show. We did the interview about 5 days before the NSCAA convention, so I know he must have been pretty busy preparing for that and then preparing to take over as the new NSCAA president. So I want to thank Mike one more time for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I know he's a very busy man. Speaking of the NSCAA, we did discuss a little bit about the 2015 convention. It is available every year, and it appears that it just keeps getting better and better. So I would definitely recommend that you go out and check the NSCAA website. It's just nscaa.com, and check it out. And they got a ton of resources there. Some of them are free. I can tell you that I actually met our very first guest ever on the show, who was Ted Croyton, through the NSCAA. So it's definitely a great resource for any coach that wants to improve. But again, we didn't get too much into the convention, and I'm sure they'll start planning for the 2016 convention. And if you go out on the website, you'll find out more information. Mike discussed a Southampton video during the show. I did find that video, and I'll post a link of the video to the show notes so that you can take a look at it if you'd like. It's a good half hour, but it's great. It's a great piece. I encourage any of you to go out and take a look at it. So again, really excited to have Mike on. As he discussed, it's a great time to be involved with soccer in the United States and around the world. Welcome back to the Youth Soccer Revolution Podcast. Today we have the pleasure of meeting with Mike Jacobs. Mike at one point was the youngest coach in Division I in the country when he was only 24 years old. He holds a USSF-A license, an NSAA Advanced National Diploma. He has developed a reputation for identifying and developing professional players. One such player was Brad Guzan. Mike also writes or co-authored a chapter in the Soccer Coach's Bible. Mike, I've given the listeners just a little bit about yourself, but why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself so we can get to know you personally.
Well, Ernesto, it's great to be able to spend some time with you and your listeners today. The opportunity to share insight with other coaches, parents to young players, it's something that I'm really passionate about, and the idea of being involved in professional development and player development is what's taken me on this path from being a collegiate high school youth and professional coach to now working as an executive in professional development, specifically with the United Soccer Leagues.
Great. And so we want to learn about you as much as possible today, and we want to learn about what you're doing and everything about Mike Jacobs. So we're going to get into that a little bit more.
Well, look, I wear a variety of hats in our soccer community. And the last month and change has been a bit of a whirlwind. I mentioned originally being from New York, then moving to Evansville, Indiana. I was there for 2 years before moving to North Carolina, where I was an assistant coach at Duke University for 4 years. In 2005, I was offered the opportunity to come back to Evansville, that time as the head coach. And after spending 9 years in Evansville, was offered the chance to move to Tampa, Florida, and to take this job as the vice president of league development, for the development arm for all professional soccer in our country, a partnership with MLS and the United Soccer Leagues, and the largest professional soccer league in the United States. And to be able to do that right on the heels of my upcoming presidency with the NSCAA, which is the National Soccer Coaches Association of America. The NSCAA is the largest coaches association in the world. So just over the last month or two to move to Tampa and to start with the USL, to next week with my upcoming presidency, there's a lot going on for me personally as well as for soccer in the game in this country.
Yes, great. And Mike, let's go back to when you first got involved with soccer. Tell us more about how you first started. Did you start playing? Did you play as a young kid? Tell us more about that.
Sure. Well, I came out of a traditional sports family in the 1970s, growing up in metropolitan New York area. My father was not only an avid sports fan, but he was a basketball coach in the South Bronx. So I think a lot of my sports foundation, both in playing and coaching, probably came from him. And really started playing youth soccer at an early age. Mentioned a sports family in the 1970s is definitely different than a sports family today. Today you have first generation soccer parents. I'm 43 years old, and my wife and I were parents of 4 children, all 4 who have played at different times. Now you have parents who have played the game themselves. When I started playing soccer, my father, who was a coach at the time of a different sport, he went to the mall, bought himself the equivalent of Soccer for Dummies, and tried to get a tutorial on the game himself. So growing up in New York at a time where the New York Cosmos were thriving, a chance to see soccer really its initial boom here in the United States, really created this level of enthusiasm for me and passion that grew into something I did growing up as a youth player and later as a collegian, to then turning into a career as a coach.
And where did you play in college?
In college, I went to Pace University. Pace University was or is a Division II school in the New York metropolitan area. And after I finished playing there, at a very early age, I went right into coaching. I coached at a high school, Briarcliff High School, which was right near Pace. I did that while I was playing. And when I finished coaching or finished playing in college, literally, you mentioned my age. At 22, I hopped right in as an assistant coach at Iona College, and I was doing that part-time while teaching full-time in the South Bronx. And I also was volunteering as an assistant coach at the professional level, first with the North Jersey Imperials in what's now the USL, where I work today, and then later with the Long Island Rough Riders, also in the USL.
And, Mike, when young coaches come up to me and say, what can I do to be a better coach, and I tell them, you got to get involved, and that's exactly what you did. You started off early, and now look how much that's paid off. Obviously, your desire to improve and your knowledge about the game obviously is a big difference as well. But, I tell them, you got to get involved somewhere. Start helping out, volunteering if you want to improve as a coach. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I mentioned my role with the NSCAA. The flagship event for the NSCAA is the annual Coaches Convention, which will be in Philadelphia next week. And, it's the largest event of its kind in the world. There'll be, potentially 10,000 attendees at that event. All coaches from different levels, youth, high school, college, professional. You'll have administrators, referees. It really is like one-stop shopping for anybody interested and involved in the game, and really exactly what you're talking about. It's a professional development opportunity. There are clinicians from all over the world, from clubs like Barcelona and Real Madrid, from national associations like Germany and Portugal. It's an opportunity for young coaches to not only network and meet with other coaches, but to watch sessions and learn and get better. And For me, professional development was something that was always really important to me, whether it was traveling to different countries to watch clubs train, watching MLS teams, college teams train. I always wanted to spend time around coaches. To me, I joke with my wife when I go abroad that I think I enjoy watching training sessions as much as I do watching matches. And I think that's the only way you can get better is just to immerse yourself in the game.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And Mike, let's go back a little bit. You mentioned your dad. You said he went to the mall and bought himself a small course. I can't remember what you said exactly, but do you remember exactly what it was?
It was Pelé had written a book at that time, and today you have these books you see in Barnes and Noble, like Something for Dummies. I would say in the 1970s it was probably like the parent equivalent for like Soccer for Dummies. Like a Soccer 101 type book, really just to orient him to the rules and just to kind of to learn the game as I was learning it.
What did you start doing? Did you get into a club right away? Were you playing with your friends, with your family members? How was it you got started?
I think it's an interesting question because so often now in our country, as we try to accelerate things we're doing as a footballing nation and try to catch up with the rest of the world, you have academy soccer and travel soccer and pre-academy age groups. My first experience that I had in soccer, I had the same thing for my own children as well, was in recreational soccer. I always think it's interesting when you look at someone like Landon Donovan, who's maybe our most accomplished player in U.S. soccer history. The story I was told was he played nothing more than ASO, like recreational soccer, until the age of 12. So, where I think it's critically important that kids are playing, I think it's just that. I think sometimes we joystick kids at too early an age into developmental programs where I think they need to be making sure that they're playing, they're getting regular games. Any training session that's too regimented with lines and too many drills and not enough playing, not only are kids not getting better, they're losing their level of enthusiasm. And for me, I've coached my own son, who's now 13, in the last couple of years, and I think when you finish a training session, it's a good session when the kids don't want to leave. When they're enjoying themselves so much that they're having fun playing. And I think that there's not enough of that in our country. Yeah, I would agree. And at what point did you join an actual travel club, or were there travel clubs back then when you were playing? It was a little different in the 1970s maybe than today. I joined my first travel club, and I would say it was a town team. So where it went from being a recreational based team to a travel team. I don't know that any of the travel was outside the New York metropolitan area. I probably didn't do anything outside of a 2-hour radius until I was in high school. Now again, New York is a very large area. It's the largest metropolitan area in the world. So, it was probably easier to do that there, to find good competition in relative proximity. But I played for maybe like something you'd see equivalent to other parts of the world. I played for a local club team until I was about age 14, 15. And then at that point, it was probably the first time I joined like a select team where I was playing a team where I was traveling more. And what do you think helped you succeed in soccer? What do you think was the difference that helped you get to college and play at a high level? I was really fortunate to have some good coaches growing up, but I look back on that experience, and as you talk about maybe how it got from the youth level to where I am now, I definitely think it was having parents who fostered and encouraged an interest in the game. I think you see too often now people talk about Malcolm Gladwell, and he wrote about the 10,000-hour rule. And I think you have so many parents who are Little League parents who, rather than look out in the field watching their children play, they see their own heads on their children's shoulders, and they push and drive their children into additional training and speed training and private trainers. And, I think at some point you see kids in our country, because they have so many different choices and things to do, at some point get burnt out by being pushed at too early an age. And I think I was just very fortunate that where I had parents who encouraged us to play all sports, I had parents who encouraged and fostered. My younger brother is 3 years younger than I am. I think we were always encouraged to be doing things that we loved and were passionate about. And I think because our parents always encouraged us to follow our passion, I think it helped us grow and get better. One thing I believe pretty strongly is the player at age 9 isn't necessarily the one who'll be the best player at age 15. I think the player who ends up being the best player at age 15 is the one who loves the game the most at age 9, 10, or 11. And because of that, they end up, because of the level of enthusiasm, they end up wanting to train more, wanting to practice more. The ones who have parents who are forcing them and pushing them to practice and train, those are the ones who end up quitting most frequently.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with you, Mike. Obviously, if you have the desire to get better, you're going to continue getting better. If you get a 14-year-old that was really good at 9 but doesn't even want to play anymore, it's going to be kind of hard to improve. So, yeah, that love for the game is so critical. I agree with you. So let's discuss now about your new position with the USL. Because that was one of the reasons that I had first reached out to you, that I wanted to have you on the show, and because I think it's an exciting opportunity. I know a lot of the kids that play Super Y, and I knew a few of the kids that played in the U20s. So I'm excited I was excited to learn about your new position and excited to see what's in front of us. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Look, it's an exciting time for soccer in our country, and at the professional level, there's more growth than ever before. The USL MLS partnership has changed the game in our country forever, and my job is to help us catch up with the rest of the world. The partnership we have with the MLS and USL, where it first started with affiliations, very similar to what you see in minor league baseball, where each MLS team had a USL affiliate where they could loan players out to get more matches. This past season, the LA Galaxy changed the game, and they did that by owning and operating their own standalone franchise in USL, who was the LA Galaxy 2, Los Dos. So when the Galaxy operated their own franchise, opposed to loaning players out, they've created a setting and standing now like most other parts of the world, where their top youth players can train with their first team, and opposed to sit on the bench and not get games, maybe which initially had happened at MLS when young players would sign. Young players at the LA Galaxy could train with the first team, with Landon Donovan, with Robbie Keane, with Omar Gonzalez. And when the first team flew to New York to play against the Red Bulls, the second team flew to Richmond to play against Richmond USL Pro Team. So what this pipeline created was an opportunity for the best youth players in our country to get first-team football opportunities. For me, a large part of my job is to help with that pathway, to bridge that gap in the most critical age of professional player development, that 18 to 22-year-old age group, and help work on a pathway of the pros from the youth academies into the pro teams.
Okay, and then there was mention about a USL Pro Youth Academy. Anyway, there were some plans. Is that still underway?
One of our goals and initiatives is to make sure that each of our USL Pro teams mirror our partners at MLS and having their own academies. So what I would say is where, in the future, we definitely want to explore having a standalone league for professional teams. The current initiative right now really is for each of our USL Pro teams to have their own academy where they can grow their own players, like our MLS clubs are working on doing. 2, to have affiliate clubs that can feed into their academies. And 3, most important, with their academy teams, is setting it up in a structure where it's free of cost for academy players. I think the big game changer that's happening in our country with our professional clubs, when you look at the U.S. Soccer Development Academy, when you have MLS teams and USL Pro teams that can offer playing opportunities where it's free of charge for their academy players, it takes soccer from being an upper middle class sport in our country to now enable players who maybe couldn't afford to play before to now be able to play. It also enables players, when you have an MLS or USL Pro Academy, it enables you to have a player development pyramid where at the top of your pyramid you can move all the way up, opposed to moving to the under 18 age group and then potentially going to college or just stop playing. There's potential for our top 18-year-olds, top 17-year-olds, top 16-year-olds to have a pathway into the professional level.
Yeah, I think it's a great start to develop that pathway for kids so that they know, I need to continue playing and working hard so that, I can follow that pathway.
Well, it's an exciting time, Ernesto, because NBC Sports Network did a documentary last weekend on Southampton, the Southampton Way, and it showed how they probably developed more top British players than anyone else in England at this time. And they've talked about how they've done that, how they've sold some of those players, reinvested back in their club, and where Southampton was perceived as a seller's club from the standpoint that they sold off players like Gareth Bale and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain and Theo Walcott. They also currently sit fourth in the Premier League. So they found a way to develop players for their own first team. They found a way to develop players and sell them off. And, you look at Tottenham Hotspur beat Chelsea last week, and the headlines there was not just that Spurs beat Chelsea, but that they beat Chelsea with 4 players from their youth academy in their starting 11. So, for me, what I'm most excited about my role with the USL from a technical capacity is helping create this pathway to the pros and offer to our top young players in our country an opportunity to go from their youth academies into first-team football.
Great. And then, so each USL team, I guess that the plan is anyway, is for each USL team to have their own youth academy. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. So the hope is that every in our partnership with MLS and USL Pro, the hope is that every MLS and USL club will have their own youth academy.
Okay, and you mentioned Los Dos, which are LA Galaxies. Now, does every MLS team have an academy? Or, I'm sorry, a USL affiliation team?
Well, so with our partnership, each MLS team is charged with either having their own franchise that plays in USL Pro, like the LA Galaxy 2, or to affiliate with an existing USL Pro team. So, for example, the Philadelphia Union, they affiliate with Harrisburg, which is also in the Philadelphia metropolitan area. So, opposed to having their own team, they have players playing in that team. It's maybe similar to what you would see to a European model with players sent on loan, or in our country what you see with baseball with players playing like in the AAA. So right. The analogy I always use for an operational standpoint is the USL Pro is like AAA baseball. It's an opportunity for the top young players to get a chance to play regularly, and you also have this vertical integration where you have young players moving up to the first team. You also saw at Los Dos, Ravi Rogers, who's been a U.S. international, after coming back from injury last year, he did a rehab stint where he got games with Los Dos, playing with LA Galaxy 2 in USL Pro to aid in his recovery to come back to the LA Galaxy's first team.
And so that's the USL Pro. They have the U20s, the USL Pro, and was there a U18 team or U17?
So what the USL has in our development pyramid, underneath USL Pro. So if you look at our pyramid, the very top is MLS. The USL's top professional league is USL Pro. Our developmental properties, we have the Premier Development League, PDL, which is primarily an under-23 league by composition, but was really encouraging as far as the pathway to pro. The average age in USL Pro is approximately 23 years old also. So we have the top professional and amateur leagues in the United States for players in that 18 and 22-year-old age group. And then we also have a Super 20s age group, which is probably built more for the traditional youth club that goes to U18. It offers an opportunity for their top players who do move on, maybe to the college game, to come back and play as freshmen and sophomores in high school. So those players can play in the PDL. They could also play in Super 20s.
Okay, and then the Super Y is the youth system?
That's correct, yeah. So, where we have academy teams in MLS and in USL Pro, our hope is that the affiliates of those clubs, maybe so clubs who are not in the academy but are affiliated to the academy or to USL, will be playing in our Super Y League. And the Super Y League is unique because it offers an interesting opportunity because it is primarily a summer league that runs really for 3 months. So, where most traditional youth leagues have a fall and maybe spring season, maybe have their state cup during the spring, the Super Y League, the league runs during the summer and has their national finals in December.
In Florida.
That's correct, yes. So it's hosted at IMG down here in Bradenton. So it's really user-friendly for clubs that play in a traditional league during the course of the school year to offer the opportunity for more games at a high level during the summer.
Mm-hmm. And then it's after their high school season. And, I mean, especially here in Michigan, I know, like I said, I have a nephew, and I know some of the kids that went down there and played. And, it was just really exciting for them to head on down to Florida and play, nice weather when it's snowing here in Michigan.
Well, look, and it's a great opportunity not only to have our national championships down here at the IMG Academy, but we also have our Super Y League ODP, which is also hosted down here at IMG in Bradenton, Florida.
Mm-hmm. And then what happens is after the Super Y tournament championships, some of those kids are selected, right, to return.
Yeah, well, players are selected based on performance during the course of the summer, and also then those who are playing in the national finals have additional opportunities to be assessed. And our pool of scouts and coaches will look at the players from their summer experience, from the national finals in December, and select the pool of players that they feel are the best players in that age group who participate in Super Y League, and offer them the chance to come back down to Bradenton, Florida in March to participate in our Super Y League ODP. And IMG is also the host of our U.S. national team residency program. So for these top Super Y League players to be training at the same facility of our U.S. 17s is a really exciting opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. If anyone wants additional information, they can go to uslpro.uslsoccer.com. Is that right?
Yeah, uslsoccer.com is probably the best site to go to for more information about all of our properties.
So just USL Soccer.
Yes, www.uslsoccer.com, and there would be links from there to go to each of our properties, whether it's our professional teams or our amateur development teams.
And I'll put a link of that on the show notes as well. So
that's correct.
So Mike, these are some of the things that we wanted to discuss, obviously. What else did you want to talk about in regards to your new position with USL Pro or with the NSCAA?
Well, with USL right now, if you follow me on Twitter, I'm on Twitter all the time.
And what's your Twitter handle?
My Twitter is. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Let me.
That's fine.
My Twitter is @Jacobs, JACOBS _USL. So it's @Jacobs_USL.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You were saying.
I'm constantly posting on there with the hashtag that we use here in our offices, which is a Path to Pro, and it's something that I believe in very strongly, and really has driven me to take this position with the USL. It's an opportunity. Mentioned Brad Gazan before. At the same time that he was working with Chicago Magic, with me with Region 2 ODP, he also was playing as a 17-year-old in the PDL. And against under 23 players for the Chicago Fire Reserves. There's so many stories of guys like him, like DeAndre Yedlin. The number of players who have played in the USL in our youth levels, who have become examples of our path to pro, who have gone from playing in our development properties to not only play in USL Pro or MLS, but represent our country and national team. We take a lot of pride in being able to develop players to the next level, whether the next level is for the college level, whether the next level is for the professional level. So for us, the opportunity of being involved in this pathway to the pros, or as I mentioned on Twitter, like the path to pro, is really, really exciting. So from an NSCAA standpoint, I have a lot on my plate right now with the impending presidency, and it's a humbling opportunity. I mentioned before, the NSCAA is the largest coaches organization in the world. There's over 30,000 members. So the opportunity to wear hats with both the NSCAA leadership as well as the United Soccer League is it's a great platform to drive some of these initiatives to help grow the game, whether it's growing players or growing coaches.
Yeah, and Mike, before you came on, I was not aware of the your impending presidency. So I'm really thankful that you were able and had the time to come on, because I know you guys are getting ready for the convention, which I will have to miss this year, but I'll definitely be there next year. But just you mentioned some of the people that are going to be there. I mean, I think was Alex Ferguson going to be there? I thought he was going to have some type of dinner or something there.
The list of dignitaries who will be at the convention this year is like nothing we've ever had before. Every day there's another massive name for the game that comes up who will be attending the convention, either presenting or speaking. You mentioned Sir Alex Ferguson. Pelé will be there. Landon Donovan. DeMarcus Beasley.
Molenstein, right?
Ronnie Molenstein. It's amazing. It would take 2 shows for me to list all the number of clinicians who are going to be there this year. Each year, like I mentioned, it's a think tank, sharing ideas, watching sessions with top clinicians. This year we'll have as unique a panel of presenters and speakers as we've ever had. So really, for anybody who's interested in professional development, learning more about the game or helping the game grow, you're going to want to be in Philadelphia next week.
Definitely, yes. And so, Mike, we've come to the end of our show. I didn't want to take up too much of your time, but again, I really, really appreciate you coming on and being our guest. It's an honor to have you on here. Before you leave, though, we normally ask a question of each guest, and we always ask this question. If you had a 5-year-old today and you wanted them to start introducing them into soccer, how would you go about ensuring that they receive the best possible development and being able to maximize it as much as possible?
Well, I'll tell you, Ernesto, that's a great question. And I mentioned earlier, I'm a parent of 4 children. I have a 17-year-old daughter, a 13-year-old son, 11-year-old daughter, and a 9-year-old daughter. Each of them have played at some level. The only one who's still playing right now is my 13-year-old son. And, what I would say, the reason why my kids played as long as they did was because we created a setting for them where they had the opportunity to enjoy the game. I think at the age, as you mentioned, like at 5 years old, at that point, any activity they really should be doing should be almost like 1-to-1 ratio of player and ball. So what I mean by that is each player should be playing with the ball. I'm amazed sometimes when I see games at the younger age groups where kids are playing 8v8 or 11v11. And, again, think of that ball-player ratio. To have 16 players or 22 players in the field to only have 1 ball, the reality is that the kids aren't engaged. They're not playing. To me, to have young kids playing where their practices are all 1 player, 1 ball, where they each have a ball dribbling and shooting, where they're playing small-sided games of 3v3, 4v4, that ratio of players to ball where opposed to 11v11 where it's 22 players in 1 ball, a 3v3 game is 6 players, 1 ball. So a smaller space, less players, there's more opportunities for the kids to be engaged and play. And the most important thing for age 5 is that the kids come back and play again at age 6. So to me, the best advice I can give is at that stage, really, at any of the developmental stages, I think you want to make sure that your children are in an environment where it's fostering a level of enthusiasm, where they're going to want to keep coming back. The age they're at, when you're talking about, these kids are so young that the reality is they're only going to retain so much information. So for me, having them in a situation where they're going to enjoy the game and want to keep coming back, those are the ones who are going to get better.
Yeah, I know, and I agree. I think I mentioned last episode when one of my coaches, we were coaching the U6 team, and he mentioned, he wanted to make sure that he was doing a good job, and I said, hey, if you can make them come back next week or next year, that they have that love for that game where they want to come back next year, that we're winning, right? As long as they continue enjoying it.
I agree 100%. I think the first question that most parents should ask when their kid gets in the car after practice is not what did you learn today. The first question they should ask is did you have fun today? And the reality is, at that age you're talking about, every other question after that's irrelevant.
And then obviously as they get older, try to get into a good club, and then hopefully now with what you guys are setting up, that clear pathway for kids to understand and know about it.
It's an exciting time for soccer in our country. I mentioned about the growth at the professional level. You mentioned how I first got started. I wish the opportunities that are available for young players today, I wish I had that when I was growing up.
Well, Mike, again, thank you so much for taking the time today and coming on the show. We definitely learned a lot from you, and really, like you said, it's an exciting time, and I love being part of this, sending out all this content for everyone to listen to, and I really enjoyed having you on, and I'm glad that you were able to make it. And anything else before we leave? No,
Ernesto, listen, I certainly wish you the best of luck. I think the work you're doing in Kalamazoo, the work you're doing with Youth Soccer Revolution, I think is tremendous, and I look forward to continuing to follow on your progress with your show.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you again for joining us. Just want to remind you that if you like this show, please consider sharing this with your friends and family. You can also give us a review on Stitcher Radio or iTunes. Just want to say thank you. I mean, it's 2015. We are in episode 16. We have more guests coming on the show. Our community keeps growing. Our Facebook group keeps growing. And it's just really exciting. Just like Mike said during the interview, it's really an exciting time to be involved with soccer, and especially with all this going on. So thank you again, and I'll see you on episode 17.